Next up, it's a disease that kills more than 30,000 people a year here. Millions of men are living with it right now, and yet most have no idea of how common prostate cancer is or if they have it. That was true of Boston Globe reporter Mark Shanahan as well. That was until he was diagnosed with prostate cancer at an age that seemed far too young to get it, 48. Now he's made his experience the focus of a Globe magazine story and a terrific 6-episode podcast called Mr. 80%, which he says is meant to, quote, inform and entertain, but also to upend the tradition of saying nothing about an absurdly common disease. A tradition I have embraced, by the way, until now. Mark, congratulations. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me, Jim.
So one of your doctors says the truth is most men will either die with prostate cancer or die from it. Could you translate that for me?
Well, what it means is that 1 in 9 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. Many, many more of them will have the disease and not know it. But because of the nature of the disease, the fact that it affects continence and sexual function, we don't talk about it. My own father had it, and 15 years ago, and we never talked about it.
You know, you make the point. I was anticipating this before you did it, and then you make the point. Women are talk about breast cancer, I think, which is really good. Men don't talk about this. You did. Why did you?
Because it's a good story, and I'm a journalist, and the currency of our business is storytelling. And, I have a few drinks on the weekend, and I tell this story all the time. And so I just feel as though there is and I'm not the kind of person who really wants to help people. That's not really my bag. My wife is a social worker. She's the one in the family who helps people. But I did think that there was a chance that this could help some folks.
So when you first learned of this, I know you were scared to death, and I would have been too, but you appear to have been less scared of dying and more scared of impotence once you read up a little bit. Is that a fair summary, or are you shaking your head no?
Yeah, no, totally fair. And I think that anybody who is 47 and enjoying a sort of a rejuvenated sex life with their wife would feel the same way. Now, the average age of diagnosis is 66. A lot of guys are 70, 75 when they're diagnosed. So their primary concern is continence and death. It's not sexual function, but in my case, it was.
You know, this is rather, I think I can say, rather erotic. You open like 2 seconds in, you're talking about the year of sex. I think you describe it as an unbridled romp or some such.
I do.
Oh, you're turning red right there, Mark Shanahan. It's unbelievable. But that also explains the title. Why are you Mr. 80%, Mark?
Well, I tell that story in the magazine piece and in the podcast. But basically, when we talk, a lot of men. Their whole identity is wrapped up in the function of their penis, if I can be so plain. In our culture, this is the thing that we value. And so a disease that affects that, you start to sort of measure yourself. And that's what happens.
So to speak.
So to speak.
I'm reading this thing, and again, you anticipated. I'm saying halfway through, by the way, what is a prostate? Where is it? And what does it do? Well, you quote Stephen Fry, the legendary British actor and comedian. He is here to explain the where, and then you can explain the why. Here's Stephen Fry.
It's not an organ so much as a gland, I believe. And it sits between a man, because only men have them, a man's bladder and his old fellow. And it does often go wrong. It gets enlarged and makes peeing difficult or too easy or something. And of course, it is an absolutely prone bugger for cancer.
So what does it do for your old feather, Mark?
Well, Jim, as I say in the piece, in the delicate prose of WebMD, it produces the components of semen. And so not the sperm are created elsewhere, produced elsewhere, but if you take the prostate out, then there's no more semen.
You know, I want to take issue in a serious moment with your saying, you know, you're not the kind of person, unlike your wife, to do a public service. You do a huge public service here. One, describing what many of us thought was still the way these kinds of things were treated, which was totally barbaric, but also speaking, despite the fact that it's tough, like with that chemical castration, whatever it's pronounced, Lupron or whatever the hell it is, that essentially, if you deal with this seriously, it is seriously curable, correct?
Truly, it is. It is truly a very treatable disease. It's very slow growing. It's super common. The advances in the research and treatment of prostate cancer have been monumental over the last 30 years. If you get cancer, this is not the worst cancer to get. However, we don't. As I say, it has this strange taboo. The taboo that women once upon a time had with breast cancer and no longer do. And we're trying to get to that point.
Are you a different person than you were before this happened?
I think I am. I'm still a big baby. Like today, for instance, my back is bothering me, and I'm sure it's something terrible. But I also feel as though I'm a lot smarter, a lot wiser, and I think maybe even a little bit kinder.
How are you, by the way?
I'm fine, Jim. You know, at the end of that story, I say that there are some people in my life who treat me with a little bit of what I discern to be kind of pity when I greet them, and they ask me a version of that thing that you just asked me. It's sort of the "How are you?" As if like, you know, cancer is a scary thing. I get it, but it's not contagious.
What do you want us to take away from this piece? And
well, that's an excellent. Yeah, that's an excellent question. I guess what I would say is pay attention, but go slow. You know, check your PSA absolutely by the age of 50, but then don't rush out and get a biopsy, because there is a medical industrial complex in this country that has a lot of interest in doing work that it may not be necessary.
And we should say, by the way, before you go, if your wife hadn't interceded, your piece would have been called Mr. 90%. Is that not correct?
Actually, indeed, yes. Right.
Yes,
no, in
that's
fact,
right.
That's exactly right.
Yes, fine. Mark, your piece is great. It does lots of great things. Thanks so much for being here, and thanks for doing it.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
The podcast, again, is Mr. 80%. The first 3 episodes are out now. You can find them on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.